thank you for coming on the Love Body Woman show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so pleased that you're with me up. Can you please tell us a little bit about who you are and how Seven Breasts came to be?
Okay, so I am a holistic art therapist, and my passion is to help women come more into their heart space. So get out of their busy minds and come into their heart.
Yes.
Also to express themselves. I find more and more women are having trouble expressing their emotions or their feelings or getting in touch with that. And I teach women and hold space for them in that environment to allow them to express and have freedom. It came about from my own healing journey. So when I was about 38, I had a massive spiritual awakening, and that involved a lot of me healing all my past childhood,
All the stuff.
And the deeper and deeper I got into that, I realized that I wasn't expressing myself. I wasn't actually expressing how I was feeling truthfully. And my daughter also had high anxiety, and I could see that art helped her calm down.
Yeah, okay.
And in turn it helped me calm down because I discovered I too also had anxiety that was undiagnosed. So I knew there was some magic in art, and the problem was I always thought that I wasn't creative, and I always said to myself, I can't draw, I'm hopeless at art. And going to high school kind of crushed that for me. During primary school, I loved to create. High school was, I started to get C's. And I do remember my teacher actually saying, well, do you want to be an artist? And I'm like, well, no. Well, then what's the point? And I remember thinking, okay, so I don't want to be an artist and I'm not creative. So I just let it all go. And it wasn't until I started this healing journey and started thinking, what did I love to do when I was younger? And one of them was creating, no matter what it was, whether it was craft or drawing or painting.
Yeah.
And I felt free when I did it. So I started doing that again, doing it with my kids, of course. And then I just got really interested in the therapy side because I could feel it made a difference in my body. I could feel it made a difference in my children. So then I decided to study an art therapy diploma, which really just all the dots aligned. And I was definitely meant to do that in my life. It opened up my creativity. It exploded my creativity, I should say. And I started to nurture my creativity, started to nurture me, started to nurture my heart through that process. And that is what you see today. That's what Seven Breasts is.
That just gave me chills.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us miss that, don't we? We're so busy with the day-to-day responsibilities of life. And I know for myself, you always have something in the background.
Yeah.
I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And I guess for me, I never believed that I could draw. And I've always said, I was a nanny for a long time, I looked after kids, and now I've got my own child, and Mummy, draw me something, or one of the kids are like, I can't draw, I can't draw. So I just draw like really bad stick figure people and really horrible pictures, but I've kind of attempted. But I think there was always something there as well. Like I really would love to learn how to draw. So,
and there's something different with that. When we think of traditional, I want to learn a technique, that is the typical art class that you go to and you learn a skill. Where holistic art therapy is more about mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
So it actually, what I teach is that art and creativity is in us. It's in every single being. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's how you feel while you're creating. And it's about quietening that mind and coming into that heart. That's my biggest teaching. And I feel like it's very misunderstood. We kind of...
Definitely. Yeah. Very much so, yeah. Because we do have, I guess, what's shown to us and what's told to us and what's, taught down the line about what an artist is and what creativity is. And creativity is something to earn from.
Yes.
It has to be a living.
Right.
And as you said before, if you don't want to be an artist, then what's the point?
Yeah. And that's what we're led to believe.
Yeah, exactly.
But it teaches us so much. There's so much in creativity and about that quieting down the mind. You know how you have those little voices. When you stop and create, you get to hear yourself.
Yeah,
right?
Which I think can be the scary part.
It can.
Why some people might put it off in the first place.
But if we don't go there, we can't see it. We're
Yeah.
an automatic pilot.
Oh,
And I always like to say that's when we need to learn to love ourselves the most. That's when I'm talking about that nurturing.
Yeah.
So when we sit to create, I teach everyone to listen to those thoughts. And majority of the time it's critical. It's the biggest inner critic comes out to play when we create. You're not good enough. That's terrible. Everyone else is better than you. Oh my gosh, that's not perfect. Screw it up. Put it in the bin. All these thoughts come out. But that's for us to see what's actually going on. And if you're doing that when you create, you're doing that in your life. So I always like to say how you do art is how you do life. So if you're rushing, I just want to get it done, get on to the next thing, you're not in the present moment, you're not enjoying it yet. Me too, like this is me too. This is why I know this so well, because this is me. Busy mind, always distracted, perfectionist. I always say I am a recovering perfectionist because it's true, it's a constant. I have to keep working on that. But art will constantly point us inwards. It will always show us what it is inside that we need to heal, what we need to feel, and what we need to express. And it's important because if we are frightened of that, we're never going to go there. But if we can hold space for us while we do that, nurture ourselves, speak kindly to ourselves, and get out of that busy mindset that we've been conditioned to be in, our whole world will look different. If we can do that for ourselves, we can then do it for other people. We can do it for our children. So my kids were probably the biggest catalyst for change for me. I was determined that they were not going to inherit my stuff. They weren't going to suffer how I suffered. And the only way to do that was to heal me. Heal my emotions, heal my feelings, express, be brave. I can't express it enough. Yeah, we're going to feel fear when we do these things, but we also discover our greatest strengths. And my greatest strength is sensitivity. I was a very, very sensitive child. And growing up in the 80s, you know, that was kind of frowned upon. And you're a soot, get on with it, toughen up. So I toughened up. But by doing that, I lost who I was. I lost my identity. I lost who I truly was. I lost my soul. And no matter what I did in life, I was sad. I was miserable because I wasn't back in touch with who I truly was. And through that creativity and nurturing, I was able to open up a whole new world and see myself in that sensitive light and nurture me. Not needing anyone else to do that. Because when you create by yourself, it's like the biggest form of self-love we can possibly have. Because we're seeing everything. We're seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we're choosing to love ourselves anyway. So I feel like it's a journey. And that creativity, why that keeps coming back to everybody is because we were created to create. We weren't created to be like everyone else.
No.
We weren't created to be like the great artists of the world. We were created to be us. But how do we know what that is if we don't spend time with ourselves? And that was my biggest issue. I could not spend time by myself. Could not. I would get, irritated and itchy. And I've got to be around other people and all of this. But art seemed to allow me to have that time to myself. And it still is. It's still a huge part of my life, of course.
Of course. Teach it all the time.
Yes.
It's amazing how afraid of ourselves that we are.
Yeah, right. And I think that, again, we're conditioned to be. Because when we start, especially when we're children, when we start to express our authenticity, sometimes that can feel a bit threatening to our caregivers. And for me, it was all about emotion. I could feel people's emotion. And when I used to speak about that, it was always shut down because it made people feel uncomfortable. So I started thinking, there's something wrong with me. I'm making people feel bad about themselves. So I shut that down. I thought, no, that's not a good thing. And then slowly it etches away, you know, okay, well, I can't do that either, whatever comes naturally to me. So we begin to feel frightened to be ourselves.
Yes.
And then we're frightened to go back there and collect all those parts of us that we left behind. But we're courageous enough to do it. We are so brave, and we can feel all of that and more if we have that drive to change. We have to have that drive to change. We have to be so sick of ourselves that we're willing to go there.
Yeah, I think you kind of get to that metaphorical rock bottom of hating yourself so much.
Yeah.
That's where I got to. It's like, oh my God, I cannot do this anymore.
I can't stand myself.
I can't stand myself. And that's when you really do have to just take baby steps, dive right in, whatever it is for you, but crack yourself right open, and you have to look at every single little thing that is inside of you.
And it's the heart.
And then throw away whatever
Yeah.
you don't want.
Because we
Don't
can't
need.
hold on to all that and change. We
No.
have to let go of it
No.
to invite more in. And that can feel very vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's the vulnerability that we're scared of because we're taught to be strong. We're taught to be, you know, cover it all up. But that's not strength. Strength is
No, it's not.
standing in your vulnerability, standing in your light, standing in your authenticity and showing up and not being afraid of judgment.
Yes, not letting everybody out there dictate who you are, because that kind of seems to be how it is. Like, we're not allowed to be ourselves because this person said so.
That's right.
And this person said so. And you're just like, oh.
Well, who am I?
Yeah, that's how I felt. And like, all these people are telling me I'm wrong, so
I must be wrong.
must be wrong. Yeah. Just
And
exactly
it's
what
not
you
only
said.
that, I feel like when you are in your light and you are in your authenticity, people can want to shut that down too because they haven't got theirs yet, you know, especially with women.
Yeah.
Women are, you know, we need to really look at ourselves in that way. Like, why am I envious? Why am I jealous? And again, art therapy helps with that.
Yeah.
It helps express that. Why are we like that? Why can't we support each other? And I feel like with envy and jealousy, it's because it's in you too. So why can't you celebrate that in someone? Because it's in you too. You just haven't found it yet. If you see that and you're jealous of that or envious of that, that's a kick up the bum. Like, what are you doing? Come on, you've got that in you as well. So we need to look at those types of emotions and feelings that we have and give them the time of day. You know, be curious about them. Why am I thinking that? Why am I feeling that? And be curious. We're not curious enough. We dismiss, we bottle, we cover up.
Yeah. That's most people's lives, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was me. Like, I'm still learning all of that. It doesn't stop, you know, our lessons don't stop.
That's the reality of it. There is no end point.
No.
You think, oh, I've got to this certain point,
I'm
but
good.
then sometimes you go backwards and you're like, I mean, I've done that myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I not better yet?
Yeah.
It's like, because unfortunately, as humans, that's what our lives are. We're all about growing and learning from ourselves and from others.
That's right. And it's layered. You know, everything is layered. Just when I think, oh yeah, I've got that down pat, I'm all good. Whack, it comes back around.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's another layer. And especially with that authenticity, I've been working with that for a couple of years now, and it's showing up massively in my life right now. It's like, where else can I show up more and be truly me? And our highest vibration is being authentic. That is when we are at our happiest, when we are truly ourselves and we're honouring that. It sends us off onto, you know, the biggest high. And the same with releasing emotion. You know, we're so scared of that. But have you ever seen a child express emotion, like a big cry, or they got really angry, and then what happens after? Normally they're tired and they rest, or they're high as a kite. Why can't we take that on? Because it's true. When that happens with us as adults, we kind of don't want to go there. But if we can just allow it and get through it and come out, there'll be those two things. We'll be high as a kite, or we'll need sleep and rest to recharge.
We can certainly learn a lot from kids.
Heaps. And that
we think
kid,
as adults that we know best
Yeah.
because we've lived more of a life.
Yeah.
But yes, that is true to a point, but kids come into this world pretty pure.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
they know how to express themselves. They know what they want. Yes, they're so sometimes, and you know they certainly need direction. But when you look at who they are, like genuinely, as the little person that they come into this world as, we can certainly learn a lot from them.
100%. And that child is also still in us. So
Oh,
we can
very
learn a lot
much so.
from our inner child and our lived experience of how our upbringing affected who we are. And I think that innocence, that purity that you're talking about with kids, I think that is definitely why I wanted to change. I could see that I was damaging that in my children. I could see that I was yelling and I was not happy and I was, you know, doing the blame game and pointing outwards at everybody else except for myself. And seeing that purity in my kids and not knowing how to navigate that, how to let that flourish without controlling it or changing
and trying and not wanting to damage it.
Not wanting to damage it.
Like we were damaged.
That's right.
Yeah.
But unless we feel and heal and go back there, we're
and
going to in a different
ourselves
way.
and what we're doing.
Yeah, but having that awareness.
A lot of people don't, unfortunately.
And I always, you know, I hear it all the time. I'm not like my mother and I'm not like my father. And I used to say the same thing. But unless we heal some of our stuff, we will be them in a different way. It's just with a different coat and hat with the same outcome. And I feel like our kids are 100% our greatest teachers for that. How they show us what's still there. Both of mine do that all the time.
My daughter is the same.
Yeah, it's
like,
amazing.
She expresses herself, especially emotionally, just as she is.
Yeah.
There is no filter. She has the freedom to do it. And I let her, and sometimes she goes a bit overboard, so you kind of have to go, okay, just maybe rein it in a little bit. But I lost my emotion, like we talked about earlier, because it was controlled and it was never good enough and it was never right, or you're not allowed to feel that way.
Well, don't tell anybody.
Yeah. All of that stuff.
Act
So
normal.
you lock it away and you just forget about it. But
And that's majority of people's stories. You know, I've seen hundreds of people come through these workshops and working with me, and every single person has suppressed emotion.
Yeah.
And it's something that we are taught to fear. But again, it's because we haven't had the caregiver to hold space. So it's hard to hold space for that. It's hard, and it's hard to do that for our children as well. I remember the first time I had to hold space for my daughter, and it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But I could do it because I held space for myself first.
Yes.
I knew she was going to be okay. And I physically saw the down. She went through it. It was really tough emotions.
Yeah.
And then she popped out and she was running around and high as a kite. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. Normally I would fix that. I would cuddle her and I would tell her it's okay and solve the problem. But holding space requires you to sit next to them.
And just letting
in
them
their pain.
do what they feel intuitively to do.
And
Because they're way more intuitive than we are. We lose that along the way, don't we?
And that's what this is about. It's bringing that back. Very, very. So when you can quieten down the mind, the more that we sit with ourselves, the more that little voice comes back. And the more that we trust that intuition and that decision making. And when we start to create, you see how much you're missing that. Because when you create, if you're not given very many instructions, it's kind of like, oh, well, what do I do? We have to trust our instincts and our intuition. And it's the same with feeling. It's, oh, what's that? Oh, I thought I locked that away.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you can feel an emotion when you're expressing. It's about reconnecting ourselves with all these things that we've forgotten, especially for women. Intuition, creativity, massive, and being able to express ourselves. It's ingrained in us. I mean, it's ingrained in everyone, but women especially. It's kind of where our greatest gifts are.
We have to wear a persona, really, don't we, to be seen as a proper woman.
Yeah. Which is,
know your place, this is what you need to look like, and
Yeah.
just stand there and look pretty, and
we're distracted.
Mm.
We're distracted by beauty and what we should look like and what career we should have and how to do it all and have your kids, don't have your kids, do this, we're constantly being told what to do, or we're distracted by what we're not doing to what society says we should.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to that authenticity. It's about reclaiming that and finding that again. And I always say with women too, it's not about being loud and in the roar of fighting to be you. That's what we've been doing for years.
Yeah.
It's time to scale back. It's time to soften. We're safe now. It's time to come back into that heart space. And that's what I feel creativity does. It teaches us to nurture ourselves, because we're busy nurturing everyone else, doing everything for everyone else, but what about us? And it's time to do that now. I feel more and more women are willing to open that heart back up.
Thankfully, which, as we said, is scary,
It is.
but definitely important. If you want to feel better about yourself and enjoy your life instead of just rushing from one thing to the next.
You're on autopilot.
Yeah.
And that
It
soul,
doesn't feel good.
it doesn't, because our soul isn't here to do that. Our soul is here to feel and experience life and to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
When we're not honest with ourselves, nothing flows.
No, exactly. You really do have to be very, very honest with what's going on inside of you.
All of it.
All of the shit that is
All
in
the
there.
shit.
You have to look at it.
Yeah.
But you look at it from a perspective, I say, of love and kindness.
Yeah. What would you do if a child came to you and said that they felt those feelings? Would you tell them they're an idiot and shut up and get on with it? Or, go and do this and that and whatever? No, you wouldn't. You would sit with them.
We treat ourselves like that, don't we?
And it's the same when you create. I always say, if you haven't created for a while, talk to yourself like you would a small child. If a small child was sitting down for the first time ever and they drew a picture, what would we say? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Keep going. Oh, I love that colour. But instead, when we sit down and create, we say, oh my God, this is so ugly. I hate this. This is terrible. This is a waste of time. You've got so many other things to do.
Yeah. Why did I bother?
Why did I bother? Look at everyone else's. They're all better than you. All that jargon goes on when we create. But if we talk to ourselves like a small child, it changes the game. It's like, oh, that's so good. Oh, I love that colour. This makes me feel good. Rather than that inner critic taking the seat all the time. And when we can harness that and practice that, it will filter out into our life. It's amazing, the domino effect.
Yeah, it's a very good domino effect.
It has a massive domino effect. And that creativity can come out like it did for me. It was the same, stick figure, nothing. I remember one of my first drawings was just, the outline of a body, because it freaked me out. It freaked me out to draw. I had that whole school thing just orchestrated in me, that nervousness of creating, especially in front of other people. But there were things that I loved to draw, and one of them was a love heart with light coming out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in every single picture I drew. So I knew it was leading me somewhere. So I just kept going. It's not questioning it. It's not, making it right or wrong. And now I know what that heart was saying to me. It was opening me. It was allowing me to be expressed, allowing me to be seen even. I think that that's another thing too. We can have this idea that it's not good enough we're not good enough to be seen, or we're not, especially in art and the creative world. Well, I'm not an artist. I don't want to show my things. I want to keep it all to myself. But how can people find you? You have to be able to show them and be okay with that. Be okay with sharing whatever it is creatively. It doesn't have to just be art. It can be anything, cooking, music, dancing, any way that expresses yourself. And the reason we don't do that is that fear of judgment.
Yes, it's when, you could have 10 people tell you, wow, that's amazing, I could never draw like that, that's beautiful. That one person, no, I don't like that. And that's what we focus on. No, I'm done, I'm never drawing again.
Stuff everyone.
Crazy.
Put it all in the bin.
Yeah,
we do.
Absolutely crazy.
And it's the way we're wired.
Mm.
It is to, we hold on to that negativity rather than letting it slide off. And when you find your authenticity, it doesn't really matter. And you get to that point where it's like, it doesn't really matter what people think because it comes from you, it comes from your heart. People are going to judge no matter what it is.
Exactly.
Whether it's
To realise
perfect
that,
or not, people are going to judge.
It's always going to be someone who doesn't like it, but then that's their own stuff.
It's their thing.
Yeah,
And
maybe they're jealous because they wanted to do that, but they can't.
or it could feel intimidating. Oh, that feels a bit, what feeling? I don't want to feel. So I don't like that. Or whatever it is. And that's, again, not to judge that person, but that's where they're at.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to keep showing up anyway. And I've had huge lessons over that in my business of just allowing people to be people.
Yeah. Do you think it's an age thing?
No.
The older people get, the more they're inclined to let all this stuff go and not care about what anyone thinks? Or
I don't think so, because I've definitely met a lot of the younger 20s and 30s, women in their 20s and 30s, who don't tend to have that as much as, I'm 46. I find my age bracket up to about 60, definitely. 40 to 60.
Gen Xers.
Tend to have...
Seen and not heard, go away.
That's right.
We don't want to hear from you all day.
That's what we've been told.
Toughen up and get in straight, Jenny. Go away.
We're in survival mode. We got brought up in survival mode. Where the 20s and 30s, they can still have a little bit of that, but not as much as what we did. And I kind of find they have a little bit more confidence to step out into who they are. And that can feel intimidating for older women too. It's like, well, I haven't done that yet, and I'm 50, and you're out there doing whatever. But it's seeing that and knowing that that's in you too. So I don't feel, I see it definitely in the Gen X, but it can also be in the baby boomers as well. And then younger, I don't feel it's bracketed, but if I could generalise, I would definitely say it's in this Gen X bracket. We're the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones that it feels very intimidating to be ourselves. But I generally feel it's everyone, and it's not just women, it's men too. I have a couple of my male clients and they're going through the same thing. It's stepping out into who they truly are and trusting themselves. Trust is a big one. We don't trust, and we don't think it's good enough. We don't think we're enough. We think we've got to study more and learn more and have better equipment and whatever. We tell ourselves all these stories, but we just have to start where we're at with what we've got. And if it's meant to be, which I truly feel we are all guided to what we're meant to be doing, it'll all work out. It'll flow.
So what would you say if you had to pick just one thing for someone wanting to start expressing their creativity? How could they do that?
Go back to whatever made you the happiest. So following your joy is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. So for me, when I wanted to go back to start expressing myself, it felt very private to me. I didn't want to do that in front of other people. So I set myself an art date. I wanted to create every Sunday. I would sit down with myself and I would start expressing my feelings. A lot of it was about childhood, and it really surprised me what came out. It also surprised me what I could draw when I had feeling attached to it, rather than, how do I do that? And I went back to kindergarten. I used my fingers, I used pastels, I used crayons, things that weren't intimidating. Didn't touch a canvas for a very long time. One of my first paintings, which is this one here, I used my fingers. It was, the background of that watercolour is fingers, because I could not touch a brush. It freaked me out. It was like, I needed to be felt. So it was almost like I had to go back to kindy and nurture. That's when I'm talking about this nurturing and choosing things that just feel good, that bring you joy. And it might not be painting or drawing. It might be cooking. It might be being in the garden. It might just be sitting in nature and breathing. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated or grand. It just has to be something that brings you joy. Flowers, I absolutely love flowers. Flower arranging.
Okay.
They bring me joy.
Yeah.
And it's something that I know has a deep meaning for me. Flowers, they just seem to keep popping up in my life. So it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It just has to light you up and make you feel good. And sitting with yourself while you're doing these things, you will start to feel. Because we get out of the mind, everything quietens down. And no matter what, you come into the heart. Like, have you ever been doing the dishes and you all of a sudden just have this idea or this creative answer, or an answer to a problem that you've been sitting on for like months, and then all of a sudden it's like bang, or you get in the shower and it's because we're calm.
Yeah.
So it's whatever calms us, allows us to be expressed and heard and felt. And start where you're at. Absolutely start where you're at.
I mean, I can't talk for everyone, but I do have the feeling of I need to start now, but I have to be an expert in it this very second.
I'm here, I want to be here.
Yeah, if I'm not an expert, then why am I bothering?
Yeah.
But I love that you just went straight back to how kindergartners draw.
Yeah.
And how they use their creation and just they get messy and use their fingers and like that.
And that can be applied to anything.
Yeah.
And we're never going to be an expert at the start. Again, what would you say to a small child if they tried something for the first time?
I know.
You have to be perfect at this, or you're no good. No, you encourage them and you meet them where they're at. If they can't do it, you start where they're at and you guide them through and encourage them. And that's what we need to do for ourselves. It's everything is about coming back into us, coming back within, and what brings us joy. And I remember the first time someone asked me that, and I had no idea. I was like, what? Do I have to figure something out here? Because I have no idea. And being a mum, I spent a lot of my life disconnecting from that. It was, being with them. And it really irritated me that I didn't know. I didn't even know what brought me joy. And so
a lot of us have that, don't they?
So many, and I was one of them.
Yeah,
it was like, well, what is it? I actually don't know. And I remember whenever I described myself, I would say, I'm a mother, I have 2 kids, I'm married, I live on the Gold Coast. But there are things about that's not me, it's not Lisa, but I didn't know how to express that. I didn't know how to feel deeper into myself back then. And it was about going back to, okay, where did I spend my time when I was younger? Where did I feel most at home? Where did I feel most relaxed and comfortable? And for me, when I was about 17, 18, I somehow managed to stumble upon a meditation group, and I was doing like meditation classes once a week. And I remembered that, and I remember people saying to me how different I looked when I was doing these meditation classes. And it made me realize, okay, I need to go back to meditation. And that was one of the first things that I started to do again. Started to breathe. 7 breaths, actually. I took 7 breaths in the morning and at night. And that's what kind of took me on this journey to where I am today. Following those breadcrumbs of what brings me joy, what made me feel good.
Love Body Woman is all about listening to the woman within, learning who you truly are, and loving every single part of you again. So this episode of the Love Body Woman show is listening to yourself. And we definitely talked a lot about that, but maybe just a little more specifically about really just listening to that woman within to find your joy.
To
What
know
brings
what
you
is.
joy?
So we can't find that in the busy. We can't find it in the head. So everything points to the heart. Everything. So we're kind of being taught, figure it out in the brain. And we'll never find the answer there. Never find the answer there.
I noticed that.
It's confusion, it's this and that, and it ping pongs, and it's crazy, and you think you know, and then you don't, and then you question, and then you doubt, because it's up in here. That will never lead us inward. The only thing that will lead us inward is the heart. So I teach all my clients, and even through my workshops, meditation is a big part of all of this, is bringing it back to the breath. And we bring the breath from the mind into the heart.
Okay.
And you physically feel it coming into the heart. Feel the warmth of the heart. Think of people you love, whatever brings you into that space. And as you start to do that and start to practice that, the heart starts to speak. And it has to be in the quiet. The only way to do that is through meditation. If you can't sit still, just breathe. Have a routine that you start in the morning, first thing. Because when we're in the busy mind, it'll take over as soon as we start doing something else.
Definitely.
So it's that first where you can implement change. And for me, I took 7 breaths in my bed. I didn't even get out of my bed at that stage. I had a very busy mind, didn't even know about the heart connection, none of that. But I knew that there was something in the breath for me. And then the more and more I just breathed, the more it showed me, okay, now I just heard this little whisper. So now you need to learn about chakras. And I didn't even know what a chakra was. Thinking, okay, what's a chakra? And the next whisper was, okay, now you're going to breathe in and out of your chakras. Now you're going to hold your heart and your belly. It was just these little tiny, and I'm talking about little tiny whispers.
Oh, they're very quiet, aren't they?
Very quiet, but they only come in the quiet, and that's the heart, that's the soul speaking. And it took me a long time to realize that's what was happening for me. But that was it. That's how simple. We overcomplicate everything.
Yes.
Right? It's
so.
in the simplicity.
Yeah.
But it's consistent. So that 7 breaths every day and every night led to the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
So for me, the most important thing is slowing down that mind and coming into that heart space. It might not be meditation for you. It might be swimming in the ocean. It might be having a shower and just imagining all the busyness.
Because there are lots of different ways to meditate. We think it's all just sitting there, but just doing something quiet and meaningful and just
walking in nature.
So
Take the earphones out.
Yeah.
Leave the phone at home. It's all those simple things that we've forgotten because we're so distracted. We're never going to find the answer in the distraction. And I find it's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, but make it simple for yourself.
Yes.
Simple. Even having your coffee in the morning outside in the sun.
Yeah.
Every day. Just that. Or just say you have a habit that you do every morning, add another habit to it. So it's like, okay, yep, I make my coffee every morning, right? As soon as I get up. But I'm going to breathe as I do that. Or I'm going to, how were you learnt the other night, put love in my cup and then drink it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of just sticking little bits in your daily routine that work for you.
Yeah, they don't have to be massive and they don't have to take a lot of time.
Just consistent. It's consistency. And that habit soon becomes a bigger habit because you realise, I feel so good.
Yeah.
And then when you don't do it, you miss it. It's that. When we do it straight away, it feels awkward. It's, I was fidgety. I wanted to meditate for an hour a day. That wasn't happening. I couldn't go from crazy busy to meditating for an hour. It didn't work. It took me a long time to be able to sit. So I gradually went from the bed, sitting next to the bed, to a dedicated room, to guided meditation, to healing meditations, and then it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So it's following the trail and listening to that little voice. We all have it. As I said, it can come while you're doing the dishes. Listen to it.
Yeah.
We ignore it, or we dismiss it, or we go straight in the head. How's that going to work? Blah, 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 blah.
Mind likes to come in and swoop in and say, no.
Because it's trying to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And it's trying to keep us safe. It's trying to keep us from not changing. And again, it can feel very intimidating. And we've been this way for such a long time. We're trying to inject a new routine or a new awareness. The brain is going to go, oh, no.
Oh, resist so much.
Do not compute.
It says no.
But it's about not beating ourselves up either.
Yeah.
And just meeting ourselves where we're at.
That was awesome. That's just, I I love how you've spoken about creativity and listening to yourself, finding your joy in just the smallest things. It doesn't have to be massive.
I can get so much joy, like I spoke about flowers before, from just, I every week I buy flowers for myself, and I've done it for about 3 years now, or 4 maybe, and I divide them up into little jars and put them around the house. And it reminds me of exactly what we're talking about, my joy. It reminds me to soften. It reminds me to get out of the head. Sometimes I'll take a breath. But I can't believe how much joy comes out of these flowers that I was just guided to buy. I remember the first time was, you need to buy roses. Again, that whisper. But there's something about listening to that whisper and actioning it. And now I see what it was actually doing. And it healed a lot of me by bringing back that one little thing of joy that I love. That little bit of pleasure. You know, we're so hard on ourselves, and we buy all these things for our kids, but what actually do we buy to nurture ourselves and honour ourselves? But yeah, it's in the little things.
Yeah, and it's finding the difference between the two voices in your head. Yes, the one that's guiding you to your authentic self is so much quieter.
So much quieter.
That, you know, you barely hear it. But for me, I've realised that is the voice that makes me feel good.
Yes, 100%.
The other voice, not so good. It makes me feel really, really bad about myself.
Right.
So if I'm thinking stuff, and if, you know, sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's loud, I just have to go, all right, well, how does that make me feel?
That's right. And what that's doing is bringing you back into your heart. Because your heart will always guide you to the right one.
Yeah.
Because that's that feeling,
Yeah.
which we're all afraid of. But that is where our greatest gold is, trusting in that feeling again, trusting in that intuition.
Yeah.
Especially when you get an idea or you feel that from nowhere. Don't go there, or yes, go there.
Yeah.
It's your whole body that responds to that.
It's learning the difference and not to just instantly dismiss something because the mind likes to come in and then go, no, you can't, you shouldn't, you mustn't.
Yeah. Scary.
Yeah.
And sometimes the heart, or a lot of the time, the heart says things that we don't want to hear. Especially when it comes to emotion. It's like, oh, I don't really want to go there right now. But it's trusting that, again, we have to.
And it's definitely feeling your way to which one, even though it might be scary, it still feels different than that weird, nasty voice that constantly wants you to just sit and do nothing and just, you know, not live a life that you're here to live.
Destined.
Yeah.
And that mind can also be, it's like the monkey mind, you know, it just keeps going and going and going. And it can lead us in the opposite direction to where we're actually meant to be. It's so clever. It is so clever that, we follow it because it's distracting us. It's like, oh, look at this, something shiny. I don't need to feel that. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's knowing, I think when you start listening to those whispers and following putting it into action reality, you start to realize how that feels.
Yeah.
It's almost, you have to experience that.
You just have to say to yourself, all right, I've got this idea, I've got this inspiration, let's just go for it.
Go for it.
And
no
then you know the
procrastination.
difference. Yeah. Oh, hang on, that was actually, felt really good, got me out of myself, you know, whatever it might be. But you notice that it's so different to not listening to the voice, and then you're like, you feel really horrible because you didn't listen to it. You've gone this other direction. Yeah. And you realise that
here I am again.
Just in that,
and that's the cycle.
And
it's the automatic pilot, I like to say. When we're listening to the mind, it's the automatic pilot. And we need the mind. We absolutely 100% need it. Otherwise, none of this could be possible.
No, you cannot get rid of it.
But it's not the boss. It's not what leads the show. It will always lead us outside of ourselves. It will always lead us into what society says is normal. It will always show us the safest route to keep us small, to keep us covered up, protected, comfortable, where the heart can be scary, you know, it's vulnerable, it's raw, it's real, it's your soul. and it can feel really intimidating following that. But the joy that comes from doing that is times a billion. I did not expect how much joy can come out of listening to your heart. And it can be something as little as the flowers that I'm talking about, or give up your day job and start an art therapy business. Right? So, and they feel scary. I remember, I 100% remember those transitions in my life. Did they lead me astray? No. They led me to my greatest calling. And it's a process, and it's still a process. It grows with you.
Yes.
You're not.
You never get there.
We
There
never
is
get there.
non-existent.
I thought when I first started healing and started listening to my heart, I'm going to rip off all the band-aids and I'm going to be wonderful. It's all going to fall into place. I'm going to have the best life ever.
So spiritual.
Oh, here I
floating
am.
around. Yeah.
No, it's not that. It's about having those lessons or hardships or healings that come through, and you're able to process it quicker. You're able to go, oh, I see that. I see, you're the observer, you're not in it. Sometimes you're in it, depends what it is. And knowing that it's all okay, that we're not meant to fight it, we're meant to feel it and go with that flow. And knowing what supports you in those moments. Knowing what brings you peace, knowing what fills your cup, knowing the support that you actually do need. Especially if we haven't had that support, we kind of think we have to figure out everything on our own. But I've learned now from my own spiritual journey is that we need each other. We need each other more than ever when we're going through change. You need people to tell you what your strengths are. You need people to give your own advice back to you.
Because people see you very differently than you see yourself.
Yes.
And they see things about you that you just can't for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, because we're in here,
That's
in
right.
our own little world, and there's a lot going on in there.
So much
People
going on.
don't see all that judgment and you know, all that negative stuff that we put upon ourselves.
Everybody has
they
it.
see us more authentically than we can see ourselves.
That's right. And people are always questioning, you know, what is my authenticity? Who am I? All that stuff. We will never find it seeking outside, ever. It will lead us, and in the head, it will always lead us astray. But by healing, it slowly gets unraveled. That's what I've discovered anyway. It's like, okay, the more and more I heal, the more and more of me can fill me up. The more of me can come back to who I truly am. And our greatest gifts are the ones that come easy to us. The things that we love to do, that come easy, that we take for granted. It's like normally we try and do things that are hard, or I have to learn that. But what do you actually already know? What are you actually already really good at? What do you do? What did you do as a child that came naturally to you, that came to you without you even asking? It's that. It's knowing that's your authenticity. Before the world came in and messed everything up,
Yes, took it away.
who were we? And we all have different talents. We're all completely different, just like a fingerprint. We all have a different gift. We all have a different way of saying it. We all have a different feeling, a different presence, and all of it is right.
Exactly.
None of it is wrong, and we're all human. You know, we should never put anyone on a pedestal, including ourselves.
Exactly.
We all go through this exactly the same way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. That has been truly enlightening and just so wonderful to hear your perspective on how we can listen to ourselves more.
Yeah.
And how art can really bring ourselves out of ourselves.
Yeah, it does. And it's very gentle. I always think that art and creativity is a very gentle way to get back in touch.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it crazy, then
Yeah. You can do that too.
You can, of course.
Yeah.
That's definitely one way to express yourself. But yeah, nice and calm.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Awesome. So thank you for being on the Lovely
Thank you for having me.
I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.